him and his buddies, ex-military buddies, were out at night, and they ran into a Bigfoot, and they end up supposedly killing the Bigfoot and its mate. But the way they said, it took massive amount of shots and kill power to do it. So I don't know. I don't know if I, would, if I ran in a Bigfoot again like that, I'd do what I did. I'd get out of there. And your friend was, Lee, was very smart. He decided to leave, and that was a smart thing to do.
Yes. We have also another member of our I-team who used to be a California cop for 20 years. She is her name is Bree Brockton, and she also, by the way, worked on the film Harry and the Hendersons as the stunt woman for Melinda Dillon, the mother, in the movie. So she's been around Hollywood and knows what she's doing around weapons. She says that when she was a cop, she would strap on a 45 caliber Glock or a Smith & Wesson, any kind of a large handgun that she could get. Even though she's a woman, she could handle it. But the idea is that she needs you need stopping power out there in the streets, even with human beings. So I would think that a Bigfoot would almost laugh at a sidearm like that, and probably even a rifle as well.
Well, again, I go back to that one episode of Art Bell with that one guy, saying that, him and his friends were, just nailing the sucker, and it kept coming, So could you imagine, like, with I know guys that go out, out in the woods, and they carry a 22. Or they carry a 38 or a 380 or something like that. That it wouldn't, or a 9mm. That's not going to stop a Bigfoot. You could empty your whole clip, and at that point, it's probably tearing your head off. I honestly feel that they give you a warning, and if you don't take that warning, then I think at that point, then whatever could happen to you, because like we've been talking about on my show and your show, there's a lot of people that have gone into the woods and never came back. A lot. So, I mean, if they ran into a Bigfoot or anything and you didn't back down, I don't think the Bigfoot is going to back down either. And I think that the Bigfoot at that point might not look at it like, well, hey, just go ahead and leave. I mean, it's going to stand its ground. Yes.
Matter of fact, I have a fascinating story to tell about a military a military guy who was actually in the military but working in the United States in a platoon that was supporting the local DEA and deputy sheriff's outfits in the Midwest. Believe it or not, they would actually go out and eradicate marijuana fields that are high up in the bush in the mountains, and they used the military as backup. And this gentleman tells the most amazing Bigfoot story that I have ever heard. He says they're coming along in it's basically a small tank or a huge Humvee that they have so they can get through the brush. And they're coming along, it's got about a 50 caliber machine gun on the thing, actually a cannon on the front of the deal. And they're going along, and they're basically trying to figure out where this GPS coordinates were that the local authorities told them about, so they can find this field. And then what they do is they don't actually burn the field themselves, but they call in the local authorities once they've pinpointed it, and they take care of whatever they need to do back then to eradicate these things. So they're coming through the woods, and there's three of them in this Humvee tank. And there's a driver, there's a spotter on top of the turret, and there's a passenger on the inside. All of a sudden, they break through some high foliage that almost comes to the top of the armored truck. And the observer at the top says, "Stop! Stop immediately!" And when they do, they look out ahead as they came through this clearing, and there is a giant 9-foot-tall Bigfoot standing there.
Oh, my God.
And here's the weird scene that they came upon. A large Bigfoot standing over, it looks like a female Bigfoot that is caught in a trap, one of those bear traps that, believe it or not, the marijuana growers had put around their property, of course, to keep other people off from their crop. But this female Bigfoot was on the ground and was in a massive amount of pain and not being able to get away from this trap. The funny thing is there was a young Bigfoot, a juvenile, maybe 6 foot tall, standing next to the large Bigfoot, and the female Bigfoot supposedly was holding a baby Bigfoot.
Wow.
It was a terrible scene, and the 9 foot tall Bigfoot seemed to be totally on edge and didn't know what to do, because immediately he's got this situation with his mate and the baby and the young one, and all of a sudden this army jeep pulls up out of the forest. So they get on the phone right away, their communication device, and they say, "We've got a situation. We have a Bigfoot right in front of us with his family, and what do we do?" And, of course, whoever was on the other line couldn't believe him at first, gave him a hard time, and they said, no, they were getting really obnoxious and loud and saying, this is what's going on here. And they said, well, fire. If it's intimidating or attacking you, fire. And when they decided to start doing that, this huge Bigfoot, the 9 foot tall one, started charging the tank. And they emptied, they say, the 50 caliber cannon into this thing, and it took like 3 shots to be able to just stop the thing. The final shot supposedly came because the guy in the turret who was operating the machine gun was an old hunter himself, an old good old boy, who knew that the only way that you disable a large buck or a creature, whatever, is a pelvis shot. And they brought this thing down with a 50 caliber pelvis shot so it wouldn't charge any further. Now, the really strange thing is that at that point they decided they needed to get out of there and back up immediately, even though this young Bigfoot was still around and hovering over the mother. They weren't going to stick around to see if they could help. And at that point, the baby Bigfoot, which was not a toddler but was able to walk, runs off into the woods and gets away. And these guys leave, and then, of course, they have a hell of a story to tell their colleagues and buddies back home, and no one would believe them, of course. And this gentleman swears that this happened in the U.S. military when he was working eradication projects in the Midwest.
Wow. Yeah, I do believe from the standpoint, they did run in. I mean, you know what? If you're out looking for one, I really don't think you're going to find one. I think you just like them. They were out and there it was. The same situation where I was with my friend. We were out somewhere. We ran into one. I wasn't looking for one. And the other people I have actually talked to, like Ed Romans, the folk singer out of Canada, again, he was out with a walk with his dog out in the forest, going through a trail. And then all of a sudden, about 1,000 feet away from him, you ran into a Bigfoot. And the thing, charged after him and, for a great distance, and then all of a sudden it disappeared. So, I mean, when you run into one, it's going to be an accidental thing. It's not going to be you're going with a bunch of friends making all this noise and then going out and trying to find one. That's just my opinion.
Yeah, I believe you're correct as well. They supposedly can even read your intentions and know that you're out there and potentially looking for them if you are. It's going to be an interesting show for me on Sunday when I get to interview Mike Beers, who is a Bigfoot researcher and film producer, and he actually has some habitation projects that he's been doing for the last few years, where he goes out with the best of intentions and actually just sits there and doesn't necessarily meditate, but he just sits there and waits to see if anything will happen. And he brings some gifts, small toys sometimes, and food, and he swears he has interaction with Bigfoot down near in the Mount Adams area of Washington State. So I can't wait to talk with him on Sunday night, 7 to 9, just to see what his updates are on what's going on out here in the state of Washington.
Well, I know one thing. They're pretty much all over the whole, well, not just in the United States or Canada. I mean, you know, any place where you have a vast amount of forest, I really think you're going to find a creature or some species of a Bigfoot. I do think there's probably different species of them. And I don't know. I still don't know if they can really read your mind. I mean, the problem is you talk to all these different people and they all have, you know, their own opinions. But then a lot of these people that have their own opinions, Michael, they have never saw one and encountered one. So, I mean, the people I have talked to that actually encountered them come pretty much back with the same feeling that I had. So I don't know.
Yes. Matter of fact, Gary, I'd be interested to know in your situation, because I've heard of this subject that I'm going to talk to you about, but in your situation, did you feel any kind of a vibration, sonic, kind of like, not weapon, but a sonic kind of feeling from the Bigfoot when you were, of course, running like I would? But did you feel anything with your senses in the presence of a Bigfoot?
No. What I tell you what I felt, okay? When, you know, my friend said, hey, look at that huge bear over there. And then, you know, he goes, why don't you take a picture of it or whatever with your, because I had a telephoto. He had his wide angle. You know, we were taking pictures of this World War II Japanese internment camp in the Canadian Rockies. And when I looked at it, you know, with the lens, I realized that was no bear. And about the same time I was looking at it, it noticed us and yelled a massive scream, which made it worse because where it was at was like near a cave, you know, abandoned cave entrance was blocked off there, but it was like on a, you know, mountainside there. So it really echoed, and that was so scary. So when it yelled that, made that scream, you just didn't hear the one scream. You heard it, you know, kind of echoing. Then it decided to come after us, and that's where we took off running. After that point, you know, I probably turned around one time. And when that one time I turned around, it was running on two legs to four hands, you know, to the hands, legs type of thing. So It was not running on 2 feet, I can tell you that. And that's all I really remember till I got to the car. And that's it. I didn't get no vibes. I didn't feel like it was coming into my head. The only thing I felt was fear, you know, and I felt more fear at that point than anything I ever felt when I was in the service or anything I ever done in my life. I mean, that's how scared I was, and I've never been that scared since.
Well, I'll bet. Oh, my gosh. And by the way, thank you for your service to our country and to all of us. I know that was probably a terrible and interesting time for you as well.
Yeah, Vietnam. Yeah, so yeah. But,
yeah.
You know, that,
I do.
That didn't even scare me as much, you know, as the running into the Bigfoot. I mean, I'll be honest with you. You know, we have 8 children. Well, they're now all adults. But when this happened around 2002, you know, my wife kept saying afterwards, let's go camping, because we used to go camping a lot. I grew up with a family. We went camping every weekend during the summer. You know, was this a normal thing? I had no desire to venture out in any form or anything out in the woods since that time has happened.
Yeah,
you couldn't pay me to go into any, you know, woods.
Yeah, I don't blame you at all. Matter of fact, here's an interesting question for you, because it ties in with a little bit of the reports that have been coming in regarding the Bigfoot's ability to avoid those game cameras that they put out there.